Hello VC, Shelf Stacker back for more. It's been a little while, not posted since I did the jazz vinyl tag video, and that was fun to do and well received, so cheers for your feedback on that one. Normal services resumed now, we're back to some rock, yeah. So I'm going to do a recent vinyl finds video for you, and if my wife is watching, that means that what I'm going to show is all the records I've bought in the last year, and none of them cost more than £1. I think she's gone, so we can carry on. Okay, first up is a band from Wales who made just one album, put it out on the Dawn label, and this is a reissue on the Magic Box label, which I've talked about before, I think. And I've got to say, for a not entirely legit label, they do a fantastic job of reissuing these things. This sounds beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and the packaging is great. And the only misstep for me is that for some bizarre reason, an album that originally came out, I believe, in a standard gatefold sleeve, they've decided to make it a unipack. And we all love those unipacks, don't we? So you have to wrestle the album out from this slot here. As it came wrapped in shrink, if you're one of those people who likes to keep the shrink on, you don't get to play the record if you do that, because you can't get it out. It comes with a nice full colour insert there. Like I say, great job on the packaging, great job on the pressing. It's pristine, quiet vinyl. You know, beautiful, rich depth of sound. I really can't fault it. Don't suppose I'm likely to find an original anytime soon. Certainly not a price I can afford. So I'm sticking with this. I love it. What's it like? Well, let's say it's prog, fairly upbeat, pretty commercial sort of prog. Lots of multi-part vocal harmonies, which give it sort of a Queen Uriah Heep feel, certainly in the vocal department. Great musicianship, lots of guitar, organ, mellotron, busy sort of Chris Squire type bass playing. To my ears, it's better than a lot of much more fated prog albums that are out there. I mean, this one's a sleeper. You've got to buy it. It's fantastic. I mean, it's funny because the reviews I read of it, it gets pretty much summarily dismissed. I just do not get it. I love it, but hey. Okay. And after that, we have a band called Lazarus. This came out in 1971. Bunch of Americans, or a trio of Americans. There's more superb vocal harmonies on this one. Lead singer's got a very high and clear, sort of quite a feminine feminine male voice, feminine sounding male voice. And this is great stuff. It's kind of in the same ballpark as Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Jackson Browne, James Taylor, bit of Simon Garfunkel. Acoustic, it's mellow. It's a fair bit of organ, violin, piano on there, acoustic guitar. And yeah, again, very much recommended. It's on the Bearsville label. There we go. Don't know what else to say about that one. It's good, lively acoustic folk with great harmonies, and right up my street. And next we have an album, a debut album by Michael Stanley. This came out in '73, and he went on to form the Michael Stanley Band, which was much more of a kind of a sort of, I think, Midwest kind of AOR type band. I always, what I've heard of them, it always sounded a bit like if Bruce Springsteen played AOR, and that really wasn't my bag. So I'm not quite sure what made me pick this up, apart from that it was cheap and it looks kind of interesting. But I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. It's a really good album. It's I say it's a singer-songwriter stuff, but there's more balls to it than most of that sort of genre has, and there's more of a band feel as well. Even though it's just his name on the cover, he gets Joe Walsh playing electric guitar on it. Todd Rundgren plays clavinet on the track Rosewood Bitters. Rick Derringer plays some pedal steel on here, and it's produced by Bill Schmizik, who had previously produced the James Gang and Joe Walsh. So it's singer-songwriter stuff, but it's definitely got that sort of rock edge to it, and it's really good stuff. I mean, I've seen some people describing it as psychedelic folk. No, I can't find any psychedelia on here, but rock, yeah. And some, Joe Walsh is on it. I mean, instantly recognisable. It wasn't till I put it on, first track, I thought, that sounds like Joe Walsh playing guitar. I had a look at the sleeve notes, and sure enough, it's him. I mean, it's instantly recognisable. So, if you're a Joe Walsh fan, you got to get it. If you're a fan of good quality singer-songwriter stuff, this is for you. And it's on a label I'd not seen before, which is Tumbleweed Records. New one on me. But yeah, if you see it cheap, get it. And then onto a bit of blues. The Climax Blues Band and their second album, I think it was, Plays On. This came out in 1969. And this is a very early second pressing. So it's got the original EMI inner bag there. And there you are. It's got the Parlophone label with the boxed EMI logo at the bottom. And this is great stuff. If you're a fan of Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, you can't go far wrong with this. But they had a jazz element to their sound as well. The saxophones on here, which make for some interesting listening. There's a track called, what is it called? Cubano Chant, which has a sort of Santana type rhythm going through it, which is a nice touch. And the track Mum's the Word is where they get very trippy. It's sort of organ, mellotron and spooky vocal effects, and that's kind of it. But it breaks up the sort of more generic electric blues feel quite nicely. I love the fact that they call themselves, they originally called the Chicago Climax Blues Band. And I think it's hilarious that all these bands pretend to be from somewhere they're not. It's like all the kind of American Canadian bands who call themselves the Mersey something or the Liverpool something when the Beatles were big. And then this load of English guys call themselves the Chicago Climax Blues Band, and then they put a kid playing cricket on the cover, which would baffle most Americans, I should think. Not exactly a big game over there, is it? So, what have we got next? The band Stretch and their album Elastique. And this is a really good album. It's rock, but it's funky as anything. Really, really good stuff. It features Elmer Gantry, who was previously part of Elmer Gantry's Velvet Opera, who were much more of a sort of psychedelic band than this one. I suppose Stretch were infamous. Well, certainly Elmer Gantry was. I don't know whether there's a whole band or just Elmer Gantry, but he certainly was part of a band that was put out on tour as a kind of bogus Fleetwood Mac in 1974. And I think because Fleetwood Mac decided they weren't going to do the tour, so a band was cobbled together and sent out to kind of impersonate them. And I think Elmer Gantry got a lot of stick for that. and he took it on the chin to an extent, but he was a bit annoyed because Mick Fleetwood was supposed to be part of that, fake Fleetwood Mac, if you like, going out and doing the tour. So it wouldn't have been completely fake if he'd done it, but he pulled out and then denied all knowledge of it. And there's a hit on this song called "Why Did You Do It," which is Elmer Gantry's sort of comeback at Mick Fleetwood for copping out and letting him take the blame for that tour. And that is a really, I mean, it's a decent sized hit single in this country. I don't know if it charted in the States, but really good song, good and funky. Whole album's great. At times they rock hard and they remind me a bit of sort of early ZZ Top in the sort of earthiness. It's track Miss Jones, first track Miss Jones, which has a bit of a early ZZ Top sort of groove to it and guitar crunch. So I can highly recommend this one. Well worth your time. And next up, this one, quite excited to have found this. This was from a charity shop, genuinely. And Gary Newman's Scarred album, which is a live album from a performance he did at the Brixton Academy in London in 2000, I think it was. This is one of 100 numbered copies. Mine's number 86. And look this up on Discogs. Want to find out a bit about it. And this variant on the black and white, mixed black and white vinyl, it's listed, but it's never been sold. So I'm thinking for my £3.50, I think it was, I got a bit of a bargain. Coupled with that, it's a really good album. I've been a fan of Gary Newman ever since, Tube by Army's Our Friends Electric was in the charts, and his solo hit Cars. And I've always had a lot of time for Gary Newman. And as the years have gone on, I think music's caught up with him to an extent, and he's been influenced by people like Nine Inch Nails and sort of latter day Depeche Mode and Ministry. At the same time, I'm sure he was a huge influence on them. So this album, he's, to dismiss him as a new wave or an electronic pop artist is to show how little you know about him. He's, this rocks pretty hard. It's some serious stuff. And I think there's a sort of extended version of this with the full set on, which you can get, but I was just very pleased to get this on vinyl. And next I have an album which I've owned this in various formats, starting with pre-recorded cassette back in the 1970s. First rock band I ever really got into and loved them and still do. And I've got the sleeve up there, a New World Record. I really didn't need another copy of it, but coloured vinyl, and the price was right, and it would have been daft to pass up the opportunity to own the red vinyl pressing of this. The original album came out in '76, and this is the '78 special reissue on red vinyl. And it's hard to find, and expensive when you do find it. But I managed to get this for a very reasonable price in one of my local record shops. So very, very pleased with that. Then next up, sometimes I discover an album and I can't for the life of me remember how I stumbled upon them. I shared some tracks off this with a friend of mine, and he really liked them. Said, "Oh, was that a sort of a chance purchase, or had you researched it beforehand?" I said, "Well, I'd heard it beforehand, but I don't know what had made me go looking for it." And it's Richard Torrance and Eureka and Bella the Ball. And I mean, it certainly wouldn't have been the cover that got me wanting check it out because it's a pretty insipid cover. But this is, there's the band. This is some really good quality, southern rock. It's southern rock with some harder rocking moments, some introspective, mellower material. There's some sneaky synthesizers in there as well. And if you're a fan of the Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker Band, you probably get off on this. There's hints of Dave Mason's solo stuff, Little Feat, James Gang. Superb. There's even a cover of Don't Let Me Down Again, the song, the Lindsey Buckingham song on the Buckingham Nicks album, and they do a great cover of that. There's lots of dobro guitar and pedal steel and some real kick-ass electric guitar as well, so thoroughly recommended, completely under the radar. And to be honest, with a cover like that, I think most people would pass it by. I'm sure I would have done if somehow or other I hadn't been alerted to it. So yeah, very good album. And next up, a Record Store Day album. Now, I don't do Record Store Day. I've never queued up outside a record shop in the early hours to grab an overpriced must-have item. I've tended to just sit back, see what turns up on eBay or on Discogs in the months that follow, and normally I can find what I want at a reasonable price without having to freeze my nuts off outside a record shop. And this is one from 2020. It's Keith Cross and Peter Ross, Bored Civilians. Originally came out in 1972. This was the 2020 reissue. And Keith Cross, probably best known for being the guitarist in T2, who are really sort of heavy, psychedelic progressive rock band. Their It'll All Work Out and Boomland album is an all-time classic. And on this album, things are a lot mellower. It gets described as prog. There's prog elements, but I think it's less prog than expansive, ambitious, grown-up, largely acoustic, folky pop rock. There are elements of Paul McCartney in here, a touch of the Canterbury prog sound, perhaps. And there are members of Caravan guesting on here. Elton John's bass player, I believe. Nick Lowe from Brinsley Schwartz. And I think it's probably in the same ballpark as Rumours and Band on the Run and David Crosby's I Wish I Could Remember My Name. Not so much because it sounds like them, but just because it's a beautifully crafted, gorgeous sounding LP, and deserves to be spoken of in the same breath as those albums. It's a really good album, and how it disappeared without a trace pretty much on release, I have no idea. I mean, it's another one I stumbled upon by accident and just thought that looks interesting, and then thought, oh, Keith Cross, I know that name. And checked it out online and thought, no, I need to own that. This is a really, really special album. Probably the highlight, and it's difficult to pick a highlight because it's all great. It's a track called Story to a Friend, which is, I think it's about 11 plus minutes long, and it builds on piano and flute and congas and wah-wah guitar, and there are lots of ideas in here, and they all come to fruition. This isn't an album that's jammed out. It sounds like every moment of it is meticulously planned, and it is a beautiful album, really beautiful. Original was on Decca. I'm sure they're very pricey, but I shan't be hunting one down because this sounds so damn good, really does. It says it's remastered directly from the original tapes, and yeah, it doesn't get much better than this. Sounds beautiful. And continuing the record store day theme. This is another one from 2020, and let's get out of its case there. It's the Doors and the Soft Parade stripped. So it comes on this clear vinyl. Got in a Nagaoka inner sleeve there to protect it from the nasty plastic outer sleeve. And this is a limited numbered pressing of 12,000, I think. Mine's number 11,945. And it's basically the tracks from the Soft Parade, which had horns and strings on them, with the horns and strings taken off, so you can hear what they would have sounded like. Some people might say should have sounded like. Not me. I love the original Soft Parade. I think it's a spectacular album. I have no problem at all with bands experimenting. If they want to bring an Oompa band and Morris dancers into the studio, that's okay with me, as long as it turns out good. And this album, the original album, turned out great. So there's, like I say, there's the tracks that were sort of heavy on the orchestrations that are on here as Doors only mixes, and then there are repeat versions of those with Robbie Krieger doing guitar overdubs in place of the orchestrations. And to me, I mean, what it shows is that the strings and horns were an absolutely integral part of not just the recording but the songwriting process, because you can hear in places where the band holds back, leaving space for those horns and strings to go in. So in places it sounds a bit too empty and simplistic. So I can see why Robbie Krieger wanted to overdub some guitar on there. Tell All the People sounds unfinished without the strings and horns. Touch Me works as a Doors only recording, but in Wishful Sinful you can hear John Densmore and whoever the bass player is on that track reining in their playing to leave space for the embellishments which aren't there on this. So it's quite weird to hear that simplicity. Robbie Krieger's overdubs on Touch Me, fantastic. Some lovely acid fried guitar where the sort of orchestral swells were originally, and on Running Blue and Wishful Sinful, his overdubs are less essential. They add less to the finished product, but yeah, it's Robbie Krieger. He's a great guitar player. Yeah, I think this is probably a curio rather than an essential. Although I do love those classic album documentaries on TV where you get the bands sitting at the mixing console, pushing up a slider so you can hear drums or vocals in isolation, hear the different elements of a track, and it's interesting for that reason. But I still prefer the original album. Okay. Next up, an album I've had for donkey's years, but only as a reissue on the NEMS label. And that's Black Sabbath's Master of Reality. Everyone knows this album, brilliant album. But I wanted an original UK pressing with the embossed box sleeve, which, like a lot of them, is a little bit squashed. There's a bit of a story with this, because a couple of years ago I'd seen a listing on eBay for a copy of Machine Head by Deep Purple, and I have that album, didn't need another copy, but I noticed from the photograph in the description said includes poster, and I thought, well, there's a lyric sheet but not a poster of the album. And then I saw the photograph, and if someone got the album sitting on top of their washing machine, I think, and there's a poster on the washing machine as well, I thought, that's nothing to do with Deep Purple. That's the poster from Master of Reality. So I put in a bid, and I got the album for a decent price, not a giveaway. It was an original pressing of Machine Head, so I paid what it was worth, and got the album. Kept my fingers crossed that poster would be tucked in the sleeve, and it was. So ever since I've been thinking, well, I've got the real rare part of Master Reality. I've got the poster. I just need to get an original copy now. So here's the poster. And it's in very, very nice condition. And it's one of those albums that, without the poster, it's worth, I don't know, 150 quid. With the poster, you can treble that. So I thought, if I can pick up this album at a reasonable price and pair it up with the poster, I'm laughing. It's got the original inner sleeve. It's got that swirl label, and it's a solid, very good plus player. Yeah, there's crackle, but I expected that. It was well described by the vendor, and I'm just delighted to have it. It sounds great. It feels right to have the original pressing, and I'm very, very happy with it. And finally, I picked this up in a charity shop. I was looking through some records, and the guy behind the till said, "Oh, I'm just pricing some stuff up. Would you be interested in this one?" He handed me what looked like a compilation, a sort of a K-Tel box set compilation or something, and I just said, "Well, yeah, I like that artist, but that looks a bit cheap, a bit of a cheap reissue." And then I had a closer look, and it's a Donovan box set called Four Shades. This came out in '73, and it is, well, it says there, 4 records at a special price of £7, which is £4 more than I paid for this. And basically it's his greatest hits album from 1969. It is the Open Road album from 1970 and the HMS Donovan double album from 1971. And Open Road and particularly HMS Donovan are tough albums to track down, particularly in decent condition, and are very expensive when you do. I think this probably goes for about sort of 40 or 50 quid normally. Just what a great way to get those albums. I mean, there's none of the original artwork or anything in here. They got the original labels, Dawn labels for HMS Donovan, and the Pi label for the greatest hits, I think. And I think I got lucky there. Very, very pleased with that. And I love Donovan. I mean, he's done his fair share of annoying novelty songs, which is to just think, if you cut all the crap out of your back catalogue, you would be held in the highest esteem. But unfortunately, he sort of sullied his body of work with tracks like "I Love My Shirt," and I did one track about astronauts, how they go to go for a crap when they're in space or something. I don't know. Anyway, the best of Donovan is exceptional, and you just have to take the bad with the good, unfortunately. But yeah, great box set. Really chuffed to have found it. So there you go. There's a nice dozen records for you. Pretty eclectic mix as always. No Motorhead today, unfortunately. But perhaps I'll do a special on some of my favourite heavy metal albums at some point. I've got loads of ideas, it's just getting around to doing them. But hope you've seen something you enjoyed today, and I'll be back for more soon. Alright, well, take care. See you again. Bye.